Okay, good afternoon, all. Right, today we are supposed to take the topic with respect to what we call it as the waste processing, right? But before we go with the waste processing, right, you need to understand processing is a very important part of what we call the methods of processing the waste in the management is going to be playing a very crucial role, right? See, if we are not processing the waste, right, as we have been discussing that the amount of waste, let us say this is the quantity of waste which is being generated at a given point of time, right? If this is the amount of waste which is given, which is being generated today, if this waste generated today is not being disposed of, right, if this is not being disposed of on day-to-day basis, we have seen that this is going to be leading to a very unhygienic environment in the given location. That means to say that if this way, the amount of waste, the quantity of waste, let us say this is the quantity of waste which has been generated. If any amount of waste, if let us say we have picked up this waste, but only a small quantity, let us say out of this, only this much amount of waste was not removed from the area. Again, it leads to littering of the environmental. Again, there is going to be breeding of flies which is going to be taking place. Hence it plays a very important role in managing this one. Hence we need to understand how a processing is going to be taking place, right? So now today we are going to be understanding how a processing part, how processing is going to be taking place, how well you are going to be processing. So in management, a processing is going to playing a very important and a crucial role, right? So okay, right. So to start with the processing, we need to understand, right, why we have to do this processing, and how important a processing plays a role, right? How important the waste, solid waste processing plays an important role in the management system. So it is required because if we don't process or if we don't manage this one, whatever the waste generated, which do have some important because of the resale value or because of the recycling value, that all becomes an hindrance or it becomes a waste if you are not managing that waste properly. Hence a proper processing is required before the waste is being transmitted or transported to the what we call it as your transfer station, where we are going to be processing it for the disposal and other characteristics property. Because if a waste has consisting some amount of valuable properties means what? See, if this is the waste which is generated, of this waste, as we know that the waste is generated from different society, different residents, different industries at different locations, it will be having different characteristics properties. So it might be having some useful properties which can be recycled, right? Let us say this part of a small bit of the given waste, let us say if A is the total quantity of waste, of that waste B is going to be a recycling waste which is going to be available or which can easily be recycled. But if we are not managing our waste properly in the processing part, what we have done, we have taken the complete waste for the dumping or for the disposal system. Then what happens? The amount of waste which was there, the amount of waste which was there, the B amount of waste which were giving us some recyclable value, that is going to be again directly disposed of without generating any revenue. So what happens over here? Here the amount of waste, let us say this is what we are calling the B waste, the amount of waste which is going to, which can be recycled or from the given waste is going to be, the quantity of waste is going to be B. So what is happening? This much percentage of the waste is going to be adding additional volume to the our disposal system. So if we recycle, then what happens? If we recycle, then automatically that this much quantity, this much volume of our disposal area or low down the incinerations or what you call it as our disposal sites, or that much volume is going to be automatically getting decreased. Hence it plays very important role. So but before we take the waste to processing unit, or before it is going to be taken to a disposal system or disposal channel, you have to make sure that all the waste which is going to be having some values to be recovered, that has to be restored back, or the segregation or separation of that waste has to be done. Basically, that's what we are going to be doing when we have a very good and a very pre-planned waste management system. So before you do that one, the technical properties of all the characteristics properties of the waste should be studied thoroughly. So uh, in this system, or in this waste processing, we are going to be going with that part only, right? So in previous class we have seen, or the base concept or of all the management is what we have seen is represented with this waste management cycle, right? So in this waste management cycle, what do we have? What do we have over here, right? What do we have, right? The waste is generated, right, from a locality, from a given area, from a residential building, or from a industrial area. The waste is going to be generated. Then the waste is going to be getting collected, right? We are going to be first storing that. That's what we have seen in model 2, right? The storage and the transfer part, what we are going to be doing. The storage and the transportation part is what we have seen in model 2. So the storage is going to be done. We have seen that the different storage based upon the different characteristics property of the waste is going to be done. Then the transportation of this waste is going to be done to the transfer station, right? Based upon that one, either it is going to be taking for composition to convert that into the vermicomposition, or once it is going to be segregated, they are going to be sent back to the landfills where going to be dumped. See this part, whatever we are seeing, whether it can be a waste landfill, or whether it may be incineration, right? Whether it may be disposal on waterways, right? In a water body, that can be done over there, right? Any part of disposal, this is final disposal part, right? That's what we have seen. But during this processing, this is the complete, right? This is nothing but a complete property of, or complete procedure of disposal of our waste. But if we are not processing the waste, what we do in processing waste means, at this point when you're going to be collecting the waste, at this point we are going to be removing the waste which can be recycled, right? Which can be recycled means what? See, when we are talking about waste, we know that we have hell amount of waste, or n number of waste which is going to be product taken up, right? So that waste has to be processed up so that it can be easily segregated. We have to process that properly, right? This processing, if you are processing this means, see, the best example is, if I tell you to get 6 vegetables, or 6 let us say some mothers in your house ask you to get 6 different type of vegetables. What happens if you bring them in 6 different bags? What happens? The number of bags are going to be increasing, right? One bag for one vegetable, second bag for second vegetable, third bag for one vegetable, fourth, fifth, and sixth. What happens here? The number of bags are going to be increasing. As the number of bags increases, what happens? The management, the way you are going to be handling becomes difficult. Instead, you simply take that in a solid, in a one particular bag. You mix all the 6 vegetable in one bag. It can be easily handed up. Similarly, during the management system, during the solid waste management system, if the processing part is done very accurately. For example, let us say, of these 6 waste which was told to bring, 6 different vegetables which you told to bring, if 2 of them can be easily handled, then the 4 can be easily put in one bag, right? So this way, the segregation part, the separation part, and the process part is going to be taking place in our solid waste management. So this is what we have already seen, how we are going to be doing the processing based upon the characteristics property, solid physical, chemical, and biological properties. This is going to be taken up place, right? Okay, now let us understand the definition. Exactly what does processing means? It is nothing but the physical alteration which you are going to be doing, giving to the waste, or which you are going to be doing to the waste, so that the best technology is adopted for the treatment process. The physical alteration, see, when we are talking about physical alteration means what? See, if I take, right, let us say this is the quantity of waste which is developed, generated from a locality. Let us say this is the quantity of waste which is going to be generated. This waste, you cannot say that it is only going to be a domestic waste, or let us say this is not, let us say this much part you are going to be having some plastics waste which is of plastic, right? Let us say you have the other part, right? Or you have what you call it as other waste. Let us say this waste is going to be comprised, this much portion of waste will be comprised of, let us say, some wooden material, like it might be what you call it, packaging woods which we have taken out, or waste woods which have been screamed off from the what you call it as a gardening area or yards, right? Or this, there might be some waste, right? There might be some waste, uh, what you call it as the domestic waste generated from the fruits, or some might be from the, right, this might be from the fruits or vegetables, that is biodegradable waste which is going to be generated, right? Let us say this is the waste which has been generated, and let us say some, the other waste is going to be some sanitary waste, right? Some sanitary waste, right? So when we're talking about this waste, right, right? So a waste will not be always having a single property, right? As we know that when you are talking about a municipal waste might be having different properties, right? When we are not handling, see, if you simply take this one and dump in a landfill, what happens? Landfill, what happens? This is not going to be yielding the product value, or the valuability of the recycling product is going to be getting wasted. As we have seen that there are n type of plastics. Plastic do have a recycling property. If you are segregating them, if you're separating them, so what happens? See, this is going to be forming to a biogas plant. This can easily be taken up to a biogas plant, where you can generate or a generation of a biogas can be done by sanitary waste and fruit waste. When the plastic, depending upon the characteristic property, the reproduction or the recycling can be done. Wood, you can take into incineration, where you can produce, you can utilize the heat which can be generated from this waste, right? That part you can utilize the waste in a proper and in a prescribed manner with a high amount of efficiency. That's what the processing is all about, where you're going to be altering the physical property so as to make the suitable for the treatment property. For example, if you're not doing this one, right? For example, if let us say you have not done this one, right? All the waste which was produced, you simply took this one and you have submitted that onto a landfill. Then what happened? Right? This were having four portion, right? Some was plastic, some was wood, some were waste from the sanitary waste. The sanitary waste, it might be a pampers, diapers, whatever it is, we call it as, or chemical waste. Oh, and the some was what, the fruits and the vegetables, right? This is what we were this differentiated, right? So what happens if you have not segregated them, or the physical alteration has not been done? So what happens? This much volume of the land was required in the landfill area, or if you are going for incineration, this was this much amount of waste, the wood waste, instead of taking only the wood waste separately, the wooden waste which was there, so that which can burn with a higher efficiency, what happened? You have taken other wet waste which was having high amount of moisture content. So what happens over here? The amount of what you call it as fuel required to burn this wet waste is going to be leading to the consumption of more fuel for burning the waste. So automatically it is going to be an uneconomical method or a management technique. So what we do, we are going to be physically altering this one. We are segregating them based upon their properties, based upon their recyclable values, or how best you can recycle them. Based upon this one, we are going to be segregating, so as to make them use efficient technology for the handling system, right? So the processing of waste helps in achieving the best possible benefits from every functional elements of solid waste management system. That's what we are talking. If you're taking a solid waste from every part, from every portion of waste, whatever the best which can be utilized is supposed to be taken out, so as to make the solid waste management system and efficient and functional, a best functional element. So what does it require? It requires proper selection of technique. If you want to do this one, right, a proper selection of technique has to done. See, when we're talking that this has to be, when we have a composite waste, right, we have a composite waste. When we're talking about technique to segregate this waste is required over here, right? You need to have some techniques to segregate this one. You need to have some equipments, right? So you have to have some techniques for the proper segregation, for proper management, so that every element derives the maximum economical values. So if you are using, let us say this was your waste from the fruits and vegetables, this was from your sanitary waste, this was your plastic waste, and this was your waste from the yards and all. So if you are properly taking this one, all the waste are being properly taken, so what happens, the maximum economical values or the reproduction recycling is going to be giving you the maximum value, or the maximum economical value of the management system is going to be taken over here. Hence you have to manage, you have to go with the processing, a proper processing has to done, so that the amount of equipment, the amount of technique which you are going to be giving is going to be leading to the proper processing, right? So this process automatically increase the cost, right? Then the various methods, also the different methods you are going to be using in baling. Baling means dumping that one or forming of blocks. That's what recycling blocks, plastic blocks, which are going to be using for this method. That we are calling it as baling. Then shredding. In shredding, what we are going to be doing, we are going to be segregating the material depending upon the properties. That's what we call it as shredding. Then you are going to be going for a compaction, then you go for drying, then you have metal segregation, etc. So different methods, you require some process, different process has to be taken, different techniques to do this one. All this is what we define it as a waste processing. So overall, you should adopt a process such that the treatment method which you are using for the solid waste management system, wherein which the segregation of the material based upon the different characteristic property should be based upon some equipments, some techniques which are going to be giving you maximum desirable economical values, right? Maximum possible economical values, whether it might be the recycling process, right? If you are recycling them, as I told you, if you're recycling, what happens? The material which is newly required, that is going to be getting decreased, the quantity of material which is required is going to be getting, and the reproduction is going to be giving you some values. So what happens over here, when you are providing, when you're using a proper process, all these things are going to be getting covered up, right? Okay, so how we do this one, right? As we see that there are different methods of disposing our waste, right? The domestic waste, which is going to be having some what you call it as fertility, some agricultural or some fertilities, some manure properties, or those can be used as a biogas plant for generation of gases for domestic use, right? And you can use incineration. When you are using incinerators, the heat which is generated from the incinerator while you're going to be burning those waste, that heat can be used for some other, converted to some other means, and that can be used. Then when you're going to be using for recycling, right? When you're going to be recycling, this block can be used, right? These blocks can be used. Basically, nowadays, when you're going for a pitching of or lining of soils and all in civil engineering areas, we are going to be having many applications of these blocks which are going to be using. Or we can reduce the amount of landfills, right? As we are going to be efficiently using this process, automatically the required landfills is going to be decreased down. The required quantity of landfill is going to be decreased. How? As I told you, this waste was of 4 different properties, right? If the plastic waste, I find, let us say I have used this plastic waste for recycling. If wooden waste, I have used for incineration, right? The domestic waste, the fertile waste which was there, that was used for what we call it as biogas. The only waste which was not possible, that I have only been dumping. So what happens? What happened over here? Instead of landfill requiring this much area, now it requires only this much area. All the other portion or other part of the waste, I have used that for recycling or for one or the other process. This is nothing but the waste processing. This is how we are supposed to process the waste. So it do have different techniques. Then when we are talking about techniques, so of course it has different techniques. So all these things is what we are going to be seeing in this class, right? So what are the different techniques, different equipments which are going to be used with the maximum values of these methods, right? So that's what the waste processing is all about, right? Okay. Then it to have some objectives, right? See, always we say that When we are doing some work, it should have some objectives, because until and unless we have those objectives, this cannot be achieved, because we cannot monitor the work. If you don't have objectives, if you don't know what we are doing, what is the purpose of doing, then this cannot be what you call it as the target cannot be achieved. See, if you're coming to the college, if you don't know you're coming to college, you might be going somewhere else, right? You should have a target. So that is what we have to have the objective. So the similar way, the waste processing do have some objectives. What are those? Let us see this, right? Basically, they are going to be segregated in three different parts, right? Further, we are going to be dividing that one, right? Okay. The first, what you call it as the objective of doing this waste processing is that we want to improve the efficiency of our solid waste management system. Of course, if we have a good transportation system, very efficiently we are going to be reaching to the transfer station, right? If you have good collection system, of course our management system is going to be good, right? Whatever we have seen in the previous slide, right? From the area of generation of the waste to the collection, right, to the transfer station, to the landfill, right? This is the area of occurrence, right? Let us say your waste is occurred over there, right? Here, let us say you have storage. Here it is going to be stored. That is what you are dumping. Then this is the transfer station. We know what the transfer station does, right? Then you have the area of what you call it as disposal, right? You have the area of disposal, right? Okay, right. If you want to improve the efficiency, if all these what do you call it as, if all the steps are going to be going very accurately as per design or as per management, then only you are going to be having an efficient management system. If not, if any one of them fails, of course you'll have a very bad management system, or improper management system is that. So because see, why means you design this one, right? We design this one, we design this management system, right? We design this disposal, this complete management system. The amount of storage we are going to be deciding, the amount of bins we are going to be collecting, bins we are going to be installing in the area. All this depends upon the quantity of waste which is going to be generated, right? Then the transfer station is going to be designed, whether you have one transfer station, two transfer station, or whatever may be the number of transfer station. That number of transfer station is depending upon the amount of what you call it as what you call it as waste which is going to be generated. Then you have the disposal sites. This disposal sites do depends upon if you are having 2 acres of land, 3 acres of land. For example, if it is a landfill area, right? If you have 2 to 3 what you call it as acres of disposal area, that do depends upon the amount of waste which is going to be generated and transferred from the transfer station. The best way to remember is this one. Recently in this pandemic, you might have been going through news and all. The mass cremation ground has been shut down now, since that was an additional because of the COVID pandemic. There was a number of fatalities which were going on. So what they did, they were incapable of the existing cremation areas were incapable of performing the number of cremation. So what they established one more cremation center, so that where the cremation efficiency can be increased. So what was that? That was simple concept, right? The concept was the amount of input which are coming, it is not matching to the amount of output which is going to be. So what happened? The management was inefficient. So what they did, they established a new cremation system. Similarly, in our management system also, if the amount of waste which is being generated is not suitable to take up, right? We design this one. Let us say we design it for 10 years. 10 years, I say that after 10 years, this landfill is going to be filled up. But what happens if you are not having a management system, if you are not properly managed the system, right? Instead of 10 years, within a span of 6 years or 7 years, this landfill is going to be getting filled. So what happens? The management system fails up. So that is done. That is done to increase the efficiency. How you increase the efficiency? By having a proper processing system. So this processing system, processing system helps us in designing or in improving the solid waste management system. So the technology should always, whatever the technology you're using or techniques you're going to be using at any stage, should always help in making the waste transport and store efficiently. As I told you, in the 4 stages, in stage of occurrence to storage, storage to transfer, transfer to your disposal. if transport and storage are efficient, automatically the efficiency is going to be increasing. So you have to use efficient transportation system, right? Or sorry, transport techniques, not systems, techniques, and also the efficient storage, effective storage techniques we have to increase. So how we do this? So for example, let us say a waste paper is blade to reduce the transport system and the storage volume requirement. The compaction and shredding of the waste is done to improve the efficiency of the transport and disposal. How we do this one, right? Baling we have called, right? We have already seen what do you mean by baling. Baling means there is going to be a waste, right? A waste which comprises of, let us say, plastic, papers, different materials are going to be present in the waste. When you are going to be doing this baling, what happens? You are going to be compressing this one, right? From irregular to some regular shape, we are going to be compressing this one. So what happens? See, this was earlier without baling, without this is what we are baling. In baling, you are going to be compressing the waste of given waste to a designed shape, right? So what you are going to be doing in this baling, you are going to be reducing the transportation. What happens? Earlier in a trailer, you required this much area. Now, since you have baled, automatically what happened? The area required for this baling is going to be getting decreased because the volume has decreased. You have compacted that one. Or you have decreased the dimension of the waste, because of which the volume has decreased. This decrease in the volume, what happens? Increase the efficiency of the transportation system. Hence, this efficiency leads to the proper efficient transportation system, which also increases the efficiency of the disposal. How you do this one? When only you need to compact this one. There's a technique we are going to be doing this one. Then the waste papers do have a property to compress to the maximum possible extent. We have seen in the introduction class that the efficiency of the compaction, if you are doing the transportation of the transportation increases. If you are going with the compaction, it is going to be increased by 75%, right? It means to say that in a given trailer, right? Let us say this is a trailer. If you are going with the compaction, 75% of efficiency is going to be getting increased. Instead of taking only 1 unit of volume of waste, you can take now as 1.75. Automatically, the 75% of the waste is going to be getting increased. 1.75% of waste can be dumped. Why? Because this is decreasing the value. So decreasing the volume of the waste, right? So here you need to understand that by providing the proper techniques, the efficiency is going to be increasing. The efficiency of the solid waste are going to be increasing, right? Then the second part is the recovery of the resources. See, as I told you, when we don't use, right, we have in module 2 we have seen the recovery and reuse, right? What is happening if you're not recovering? Let us say there is XYZ material, right? Or let us say this is a notebook, right? Or this is a notebook of, let us say, any brand, right? When we were kid, I think we were using Lapaxi. Okay, so let us say this is a notebook, right? This is a notebook of some brand, right? So now, if to produce this book or to produce this notebook, what you require? You require to cut down the trees to have the trees to make a notebook, right? Then you have to be processed in the industry. Then we get this, right? But what happens? Let us say nowadays you are getting a rough notebooks, right? Notebooks with a rough paper, right? Or with a dim color paper. So let us say there was a waste. There was a waste which was generated from a packing industry, or let us say from a college, or from a commercial area, or from a official area, or a software industry. You have generated a waste. This waste was primarily, or a newspaper industry, this was primarily only of the paper. Now this paper, when we have used, it has become a waste. Either it might be a notebook, it might be a newspaper, or it might be anything else, right? Or an official paper product. Now you have a waste of this paper only. Let us say you have a solid waste which is only of paper. Now, if you recycle this, let us say once you have recycled this, now you are getting a waste. Let us say you are getting a waste, and again a notebook is being generated. Let us say you have made a new notebook, right? This notebook what you have now over here is a notebook which is generated from a recycling paper. So what it does now, the amount of tree required to generate a new paper that has been decreased up, isn't it? Now you don't need to cut down a tree, right? You know, for let us say this tree you are cut down to make this notebook. But if I have a recycled paper, I don't read a reproduction or a production unit. Now I don't need this part, right? This part, the amount of production is going to be decreased, and also the waste of the paper which was leading to generation of the waste in disposal area, that is also being getting decreased. So recovery and recycle is going to be playing a very important role, right? You should remember this one when you're going to recovering this one. Why do we recover? When we recover the materials, then we are going to be sending them for recycling. See, in a given area, if you have different waste, if you're not segregating this waste, right? If the separation and segregation part is not done, all the waste, whether it may be plastic, whether it may be paper, whether it may be a metal, or whether it may be a what you call it as vegetable waste, all is going to be combined in one only, and that is going to be getting disposed of. So what happens over here when you are not recovering? Recovering means I'm recovering only the plastic waste, I'm only recovering the wooden waste, I'm only recovering the metal waste, I'm only recovering the what you call it as the sanitary waste. Right, sanitary waste, it takes 450 years to decompose, right? Pampers, if you're talking about a baby pamper, it takes 450 years. If you're not recovering that, what happens? You all will put this one in simple waste, and then you're going to be getting for disposal. So it becomes very inefficient management system. So here, what we are going to be doing, we are going to